Hello Wooden Heart Co supporters, thank you for tuning in again. This is the second video in the series where we're looking at these mixed media paintings, the little cuties here that are available in my Etsy gift shop, but I'm happy to share how I make them with you. The last time we were in the video I talked about the bare cases, the little shelves here, drawers, sorry, the little drawers here, and there's just the basics in how we get them to this step here. So we've laid in plaster, applied jewels or knickknacks, little elements, some printed paper words, and we've worked into the plaster a little bit, and now we're going to paint them with a bit of colour. Any comments or suggestions are really welcome. Please comment and suggest things below, or ask any other questions, because there's bound to be a heap of stuff that I've missed. And also please like and subscribe. I'm really hoping to do more of these because I'd love to share what I've learned over the 50 years of creating that I've done. Okay, let's have a look now. Right, here's some of my supplies. Different acrylic paints here. I've just gathered a few for you to see. They're already pre-mixed. Sometimes you can get some really lovely colours just by mixing yourself, using the primaries and moving and working through. And sometimes, you know, it's just easy and quick to get them off the shelf, and they're quite reasonable too. These aren't going to be paints that you're going to be creating any masterpieces with. I'm not sure about the longevity of them. They'll be fine for a good 10 years. You might not see it on your great grandchild's heirloom thing in 100 years time, but you know, who knows. I also use some inks here. These are Adirondack inks. They're very intense in colour. You need to dilute them quite a bit in order to use them, because the colours are so deep. The only trouble I have with those, and with the watercolour pencils that I have here, and also just some regular inks, is that sometimes when you're layering up your paints, I like to create a kind of blended background where the colours move into each other. It's kind of a rainbow subtle effect. You can see there. And sometimes when you're moving the colours around like that, because they're not fixed with a binding agent like the acrylic paints are, they can literally lift off the whole piece and you're left with a blank. So it can be frustrating when you've created something quite beautiful, especially if it's a work on paper, and the moment you try and varnish it, everything just moves and slides off. So that's just something to be aware of, that you have to be very careful and considered when it comes to the lightness of your touch and the sort of mediums you might use to seal your projects afterwards. All my ones have got a matte varnish on them. I hope this isn't making anybody feel seasick, all this movement. I just thought it was easier than having it on a tripod, being able to kind of show you guys everything. There's a satin varnish by Galleria. It might not be satin actually, because I do tend to mix them up, so it could be matte in there, but that's what I tend to use, and I find it really gives a lovely smooth sheen, and it just protects stuff. So for instance, these paintings here now, they can just be, if they get dusty, I would recommend using a soft brush to get in and out of all the grooves, get the dust and things out. I'm not much of a housewife, I have to be honest, so I'm not an expert here, but you can actually go over all of them with a very lightly damp cloth to clean them, and the paint will stay stuck because I've used the varnish. I've popped some paint here. This is actually the inks. They were supposed to be little tiny dots because, as I said, they're very intense colours. You don't need a great deal. But, you know, I spilt it when I was getting it ready. It went all over my table and stuff. So this is actually the aubergine and the espresso. So it's basically purple and brown. But they've kind of blended in. It doesn't matter. I'm going to see what they look like once I apply them. And then here's just some of the acrylics, just some dotted about colours. And plenty of white. Now, I've got some white that I'm going to keep just as white. And I've got some white that I'm going to use for blending. It can be really frustrating if you only have the one white out and you need perfect white, but you know you've stained it with ink and with other colours. And also I would recommend having at least 2 pots of water. Your dirty pot, which is where you'd get rid of most of the paint, although that is also what this is for. I'll get rid of a lot of that, and you might notice my clothes and my aprons too, but and then your medium pot, and then a very clean pot. Now this is partly because I work in the shade one. I don't want to keep to and froing it into the house, but it's just a handy thing. Always fill your pots to the top and rinse your brushes as thoroughly as possible. you need to have clean water to have clean, vibrant paint. Otherwise, you're just going to make everything look muddy and grey. Top tip. Okay, let's have a look here. So I'm just going to make sure this brush is really clean. And we'll see how we go with this, me holding the foam with one hand and painting with the other. One of the things I like about the acrylic is that it does have a soft sheen on it. And of course, being acrylic, and because it's got these polymers attached to it, which is basically, well, kind of like what's in PVA, might even be PVA, I'm not sure. It seals the holes in the plaster, so not many things will sink in. Now, if you're wanting, have a look here. You see how this is here, lovely. It's all gone into the outlines. Now, I put that colour on almost first because I wanted it to sink deeply into there without painting on top first. But I'm going to go straight ahead with this one. And maybe it's up to you where you place your colours. You might want to do lighter colours at the top, darker colours at the bottom, or a whole mixture of both. It really doesn't matter. Bear in mind when you're painting that you could be doing 10 layers. It doesn't matter. With acrylics, you can keep going and going and going. You know, I'm going to have to, I'd like a little bit of red here to blend. Oh, let's go with the blue because it's here. And then just what I'm showing you guys. And this is what I was saying, sorry. So with the acrylics, you can go over and over and it doesn't matter. You can layer up and layer up, which is one of the benefits of acrylic painting. If there's a mistake, oops, just cover it. You'd hardly see. Unless it's a really thin layer, of course, and then that could be a problem. Right, so at the moment it's looking really chunky and clunky, and that's not what you want. But if you take a little bit more of your white, and you see how that shade is kind of blended there. Just toned it down, softened it up a little bit. So it's now got an in-between shade. Is this making sense, guys? I hope so. Don't forget to let me know in the comments. Okay. Add a little bit of the turquoise. Oops, got a little bit of the gooey stuff there. Okay, so I think I'm just going to pop you down for a second while I do a bit more blending and maybe work on the basics of these other paintings. Okay, but I hope you get the gist, and I'll be back in a minute. Just want to show you this quick purple, how saturating it is. That's before, obviously, I've put any acrylic down on there. Oh, I wanted to just tell you quickly about my paintbrushes. The idea is, if you're an artist of any sort of standing, you just buy the best paintbrushes you can because, you know, you need the good tools, and that's all there is to it. So no kiddie sets or stuff like that are going to give you any decent results because, I mean, this is still a cheapy brush. This is only like £2.99, that is, which is a bargain. And it won't last a terribly long time because a lot of my work I do push and scrub into the paint. So it's going to take some battering. And so it's not going to last forever. But, you know, if it had been like a kiddie's brush, it just wouldn't have worked the same. I tend to use fancier brushes when I'm working on paper, in watercolours, etc., when you need to have really decent fine details and a fluidity of the paint, which is what some of the other posher brushes allow because the hairs are so fine. And my palettes, as you can probably see, are just scraps of plastic really from packaging that isn't recyclable. So at least I'm getting use out of them before I've popped them in the bin there. So if you can see on that one there, it won't be to everybody's cup of tea, but it's got like kind of a rustic, grungy, dark look about it. And here's the green one and the yellow one more blended. Now when that's dry, which won't take terribly long, probably about 20 minutes, maybe less than that, I'm going to cover it all with more white so that it kind of whitewashes it and knocks the colour back a little bit, which is what I'll do with this one as well, because at the moment it looks quite dark. Looking through my phone screen, it's not the same colour as that. The actual colour is more brown, and the phone screen is showing it as quite a more plummy, yeah, more vibrant and more plummy. It's more muted than that. Ooh. There you go. I'd love to see any of your creations. If any of you guys are mixed media artists, or you're looking at this thinking, gosh, I would have done it like XYZ, I'd love to hear any of that. You see how I've also put the colour in there, the ink. Now, when I go to put more colour on it, or just to highlight those top petals by brushing a white over it, or maybe I might even use copper foil. That's my new goodie this weekend. I'm very excited to use it. I might show that another time. I need to make sure that that is completely dry, and if possible to have applied the satin varnish so that it would seal the ink in there, and it'd be okay for me to kind of fiddle about without getting it too messed up. Okay, this is what I love about these inks, is their transparency. So you still got all the intensity of colour, but they're still transparent. I'm hoping when I finish this, you'll still be able to see some of the map that I've pasted to the base. You see how it sits around either side of the groove there? And gives it a nice bit of texture and interest. I like that. In this top corner, the orangey colour is this stuff. Where is it? I've had it for over 10 years. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. It's jiggling about all over the place. Let me just pop you down. Okay, I've had it for over 10 years. I don't even know what you can see how gooey it is. I just thought, oh gosh, you know what my trouble is? I don't know if any of you do this, but when I have something that I consider lovely, I mean, I'm laughing now because that's just such a run-of-the-mill thing, but at the time I thought it was very lovely, and I was so pleased with it, and that I didn't want to use it because it was too special. And so it's just dried up, and now it's practically unusable, which is such a shame. And it could have been on so many lovely things that I could have shared with people, and I didn't. And the same thing happened actually when I was first into card making, a good 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. And I bought these amazing metallic silver and gold envelopes from quite a small company, and it was a big deal. It was a massive deal, and they were really expensive compared to regular envelopes. And yeah, that one's just about dry, ready for its white. And I saved them and I saved them, and I even moved house and I saved them and I saved them. And then, of course, as you can guess, they just got damp and they all stuck together and I couldn't use them. It was such a shame, so upsetting. They were kind of just wasted. Okay, it doesn't matter how much paint you get on the outsides and on the edges, because you can just paint over that. Now what I'm trying to do with this one, so it's just a whitewash over the top. I don't want to press too hard. I don't want to get it into the grooves, because I want some of these darker colours here and here to show, because that's what gives it interest. That's what makes the piece alive. Make sense? Okay, I know it's looking really messy at the moment, but you know, you've got to keep the vision, girls and boys, whoever's watching. You've got to keep the vision. Trust in your own artistic integrity, and you're going to do amazing. You know, it's so important to create. It's so important to allow yourself, whether it's gardening or painting, or, you know, even in how you arrange the books on your shelf. You know, apart from if you're a little bit tight with that. I can be a bit tight with that, so maybe we'll erase that last comment. But you know, even just arranging decorations in your home, then, is that better? Maybe anything like that. Just creativity, creating, making, creating, planning. You know, how you apply your makeup, how you style your hair, what you choose to wear. All that creativity is so important. It's the flow of life, it really is, and it's what keeps everything moving, keeps the energy up. Just kind of checking into that natural habit of creativity. It's the flow, I think. Flow of life. There you go. I'm going to stop now. All right. Turn into a woo-woo thing. Okay. Gosh, I hope these angles are helpful. I will try next time to use a tripod. Yeah, I think that's looking really pleasing. And don't forget, by the time we've rubbed off the paint from the elements here, these gems, they'll rub off a bit. I'm not going to rub off the bird because the bird is actually turquoise and it's made of Fimo. It's a cutter I had, doves, and I can make them 3D or I can make them flat ones like this. And I did a series of buttons, Fimo buttons that I used to sell. And this is one of those that was just left over because I used to sell them in pairs and I didn't have a pair for this one. And but I thought it was lovely in here. But obviously I don't want to put a turquoise element in this right now because it's got those lovely muted tones. I might give it another touch, I don't know. I was wondering about this one, having it more of a midnight blue at the bottom. I'll see how I go. But I think that's enough for today, guys. It's 15 minutes long. I hope you've bared with it this long. Goodness knows how. I only meant to do another 3 or 5 minutes. Anyway, too much chatting. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear what you think and to see some of your creations. And I'll check in and see you next time. Bye now.